welcome back to the channel. Today we're in a 2018 Porsche Boxster, or a 718 Spyder, depending on what you'd like to call it. And I'm on the island of Maui, which is in Hawaii. And we have this car for a week to try out. And I'm going to compare this car with the old version of the car, the 2013 version, which is the 6-cylinder. This is the 4-cylinder version, the newer variant of the time. Now the interior of this car is much the same as my 991.2 Turbo S. So it's incredibly familiar to me. It's got all the CarPlay functionality and exactly the same control. So it's just like getting in, putting a glove on when you actually jump back in this car from my daily driver. And it's been very interesting having this for the week, driving around this island. Firstly, I will say, perfect car for driving around the island in. Just fantastic. It is a convertible, but it is too hot most of the time to actually have that convertible roof down. So in reality, you'll put that roof down in the early morning or in the evening. That's about the only time you'll need that down. But interestingly enough, with this particular vehicle, the sounds from the sports exhaust are much better when the hood is up than when the hood is down, which is really interesting. Now we're driving through the west coast of Maui at the moment. And for those of you who keep up with all the news, there were pretty devastating fires through this region a year ago, which took out a number of houses and sadly a number of lives. Now we're on this island for a week, so I get to drive this car for 1 week. And then after that, we're going back to O'ahu, and I'll be driving the older version of the Boxster. Now, this is my first time driving a Porsche Boxster of any kind. So all I've driven prior to that is my 993, my Turbo S, and that's it. And my Turbo S is a 991.2 generation version. I've got reviews of that on the channel, make sure you check that out. This car, not being four-wheel drive, does feel, of course, much lighter, more nimble, much more underpowered, but still powered enough for what you want to do in it. I mean, the problem with this car is it's a great car and there's nothing really bad to say about it. It seems like every Porsche I get in is a great car, and I guess that's what every Porsche nerd will be telling me, I told you so, but it is true so far. Every Porsche I've been getting into is just built so solid, the whole chassis is so stable, everything about it feels quality, it just works. Apart from maybe the multimedia system, which is pretty unreliable, to be fair, in this particular model. Seems to crash a lot and I have to reboot it quite a lot. And that doesn't happen in my one, so that could just be a software bug update. So driving around the west coast of Maui, and in fact yesterday we drove around the north part of Maui as well, and going up round through the north, very, very twisty, narrow roads that just go on for literally hours and hours, and there's an awful lot of one-way bridges where you have to stop and yield, and a lot of those have a bit of water running through them, so you get a nice little bit of slippery as you power slide out and around that corner, which is quite good in this car, being rear-wheel drive. And yeah, it's been an awful lot of fun, I have to say. Now, this one is in Guards Red, and I love a Porsche of color, and I'm a big fan of Guards Red. I think it looks fantastic. Apparently it doesn't resell very well. Apparently people don't particularly like red Porsches, which is very sad because it's a great color. Maybe that's because they mistake them for Ferraris too many times, I don't know, but it's a great color, looks fantastic on this, and really suits it, in my opinion. Now, yesterday when we were driving up through the North Shore, we pulled into a fruit stall which had some beautiful fresh fruit, completely legitimate, I would have to say. And of course we had the famous shaved ice. So we're on the side of the road here, north coast of Maui, and we are trying out the shaved ice. So this is literally just ice, shaved, and then fresh fruit juices poured in and infused into it. So it is delicious. It is a bit of a Hawaii thing. And you can see why, because it's very refreshing on a hot day. In fact, the fruit on the island is just an absolute must-have. Pineapples, guava, get into everything because it's all really good. Now the specifications of this particular model are pretty standard. It's rented from Turo, so it's probably had a bit of a life to it, I'd imagine, but it's still holding up really, really well. And for a car that you might want to use as a daily car, this would be fantastic. There's nothing wrong with this as a daily vehicle. Easy to drive, easy to get into. In fact, it wants to be driven all the time. In terms of its performance, a little bit laggy. Again, it's not very fair to compare it against the Turbo S, but if I drop it down, for example, into first gear now, power down, there's a wee bit of a pause before it sort of gets going, and then away it goes. But if you keep it revving hard and keep it revving high, it's going to keep performing and reward you with some great driving. And it sounds good with the sports exhaust. You get those bit of pop on the downshifts, and you hear that with the hood up. But funny enough, you don't really hear it with the hood down because you get a lot of buffeting coming through. Everything's kind of distorted with the sounds of outside. So you kind of miss out on that exhaust sound, which is a bit sad. So I'll be interested to see what the other car sounds like. Okay, we're on the island of O'ahu and we're flown in from Maui. Put the car here, a nice backdrop of Diamond Head and Waikiki and Honolulu in behind us. We're going to take this one for a drive now and see what we think in regards to, is this previous generation 6-cylinder car compared to the 4-cylinder I've just been driving, naturally aspirated, normally aspirated versus turbo that I've just been driving, is this a better car? That is the question. Let's get in and find out. Okay, well, I have been driving this car for a few days on O'ahu already, so I can immediately tell you exactly what my thoughts are. And we're currently up this hill called Tantalus, and even though the views are pretty spectacular, the road unfortunately is very, very unspectacular. It is just filled with divots and holes and all kinds of grass growing through the center of the asphalt. It is not the best track, unfortunately. But it does bring me to my very first point about this particular car. The suspension in this car is not particularly good. Now, in the defense of the car, it's done 180,000 kilometers, and I suspect the suspension is really tired and possibly hasn't been done for a while. So I don't feel like I'm getting or giving this car a very fair review when it comes to its suspension. I am not currently in the sport suspension mode, but it doesn't really make much difference regardless whether you're in sport suspension mode or you're in the, I guess the regular mode. It's still really, really rough. So we won't worry too much about that. However, you can tell from the handling of the car going around these bends, it is just fantastic. It really does, as they say, carve up those hills, carve up those corners. It's just fantastic. So what a great little sports car for that kind of thing. It's way too hot to have the top down during the daytime. I filmed obviously just then, but I'm going to leave the top up with the air conditioning on for the time being because it is stifling outside. Okay, I've just pulled over for a second so I can talk a little bit about sort of the interior cabin, which is actually a really important part of any car because you spend most of your time in the car. Now, the thing about this particular fit out, because I know what the next generations of cars look like and how they are, I know that this feels a little bit experimental. And by experimental, what I'm saying is, they were learning things when they were putting in all of this new kind of fit out, new kind of switch gear, controls and things like that. And they were using bits from older cars and and refining and refining and refining the whole Porsche lineup. So there are a lot of things in this car that really date it, and I'll just quickly run through the things. Not all individually, not necessarily big things, but when they add up together, it is a little bit frustrating. One of them is the window. The window doesn't always, when you open and close the door, it doesn't always go right up and tuck in properly, and sometimes when you open the door it jams on the hood. Again, this is stuff that was refined in later versions. The indicator stalk, if I can just come in here, listen to that. It kind of reminds me of a stack of dry spaghetti, and you're snapping the dry spaghetti. It's that kind of horrible sound. It's a real snapping sound, which every time you press the indicator left or right, it feels like you're going to break the stalk. The flappy paddles, I just don't understand these. I can't get to grips with them. You have to pull from the back and the entire module moves, and left and right module actually does exactly the same thing. So you pull forward to change down a gear, and you push to change up a gear, and it doesn't matter which side you do that from. I can't get to grips with that. It sounds terrible. That kind of click thunking noise when you're changing gears, it's not enjoyable. It's a little bit stressful sounding compared to the more modern flappy paddles. And I mean, I know that on the newer car it's just a very subtle click in the newer ones, but then you go into something like again, I keep talking about the 488 Ferrari, but the paddles on that is just textbook perfect. 2 dual micro switches, which when you click them, they have a really definite positive click. So I don't like those at all. The volume control down on the radio, it feels like a loose tooth. It's just sitting there hanging, and this is not very German. It just feels really, not necessarily cheap, but not that flash in that regard. Heater controls, the up and down heater controls have not been refined. They're not dual climate, so you've got just cold, hot, low, high, and that's a little bit odd and unusual. But anyway, let's go back to the driving. Just get myself out onto this road. Just pulling away here. Yeah, that was the other point. Even though it's got a nice 6-cylinder engine in it, and that sounds really, really good, it sounds like you're making lots of great progress as you rev through the gears, but in reality, you're not going very fast at all. In fact, Nana's Honda Jazz is a much faster, much more sporty car than this feels. And again, it's just an age thing, I guess. That's just the older technology. But of course it is normally aspirated, and that is a kind of a nice thing. So pros and cons. I do love the turn right through a red light rule in America. I think we should all have that rule. It is absolutely fantastic. Of course in New Zealand it would be turn left, but just fantastic. It just makes so much sense. So the other thing about this car is the seats. So the seat technology has definitely got significantly better in Gen 4. Multi-way electric adjustable seats in the newer car. This one has some electrically adjustable forward and back, but everything else is manual, and there's a manual pump to sort of lift the seat. It's really interesting because the owner of this car actually has left a little memory foam pillow in behind under my butt, and I kind of saw it and I thought, oh man, I laughed. I thought, what kind of old man has put that in there? And then after about 10 minutes of driving without it, I totally understood why it was there. I suspect that the foam in the seats has probably disappeared, or maybe it's just the angle of the seat, I'm not sure, but they aren't that comfortable, and that has been significantly improved as the generations have moved on. And even looking into right forward to the Turbo S on the 991.2, really beautifully comfortable seats, and I think it's 18-way adjustable or something crazy like that. So yeah, I think technology moves forward. Now the other thing is that I had these expectations getting into this older car that this might be the one that I fall in love with out of the two. And the reason I say that is when I test drove the Turbo S 991.2 and I compared it with a 992 Carrera 4S, I fully expected that the newer Carrera 4S would be the one for me, but I was so wrong. And the 991.2 Turbo S, I just absolutely love it. I loved the older cabin. I loved the fact that they had, you know, I guess more visceral, hands-on, physical buttons, and the technology was just absolutely where it needed to be. It was not too much. It was really pared back, and I really liked that. And then the 992 just had screens and haptic touch buttons, and I didn't like it at all. Now, obviously, we're going back to 2013, and you know, so I had a little bit of in my head, maybe this would be the better car of the two, but I'm going to call it, it is not. It is not the better car of the two, in my opinion. I really do miss the power in particular that was coming from the 718 Spyder. Even though it was turbo and there's a little bit of turbo lag in there, you could sort of get yourself set up really easily, and then you had that power whenever you wanted it. It also, even though the sound is probably a little bit staged with the crackles and the pops and the way that they've kind of put all that together, I kind of like that in the 718. I kind of like that, you know, bum, 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 when you're going down. I mean, I know that they probably set all that up, but it still sounds really good. This doesn't have that, and I kind of liked it. Maybe that's just a bit naff, and maybe that novelty would wear off really, really quickly. So you can tell me what you think in the comments below. This is probably more traditional, so nothing wrong with that, and you could probably put another exhaust on this and really make it sound incredible if you wanted to. But bang for its buck, you know, this car is really quite reasonably priced at the moment, and there's absolutely, apart from all the things I've just said that are wrong with it, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. In terms of the value for money, I think is there. It's a great car. It looks fantastic. I like the shape of it. I like the feel of it. The handling is just superb. Just make sure that you've got good suspension in these aging cars. Make sure that it's well maintained and looked after. Good tires, all those kind of things. And then I think it'll serve you very, very well. So, yeah. That's my comparison between the Gen 3 and Gen 4 Porsche Boxsters / Spyders. They're a great car. They really, really are. I know that they get bagged a little bit by 911 owners who think that they're obviously not a 911, and so blah, blah, blah. Get over yourself, I'd say. You know, it's a great, great car, and beautifully engineered, beautifully put together. This one's done 180,000 Ks, and it's been, interior-wise, it looks like it's probably done 80,000 Ks. You know, I've been in cars that have done 50,000 Ks, and they look a lot worse than this in terms of just the wear and tear. The leather is still good, and this is a light, like a tan type leather, which is, you know, very hard to keep looking good. So they've done a really great job at looking after this, and it's going to probably give another 200,000 Ks quite easily, although get that suspension sorted, I would suggest. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for commenting down below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.